Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Narayanam
Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskrityam
Narayanam
Naran Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswati
Vyasam
Tato Jayamudiraet
Tato Jayamudit
Nashtaprayesu Abhadresu
Nashtaprayeshva Bhadresh
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
नित्यं
Nityam
भागवत
Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke
Bhagavati Uttama Sloke
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishti.
Reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, titled The Most Confidential Knowledge, and verse is 14th. Satatam kirtayo mam
Satatam Kirtayanto
yatantascha drudha brata
Yatantascha Dradavrata
namasyantascha mam bhaktya
Namasyanta Chabam Bhaktya
nitya yukta upasate.
Nitya Yukta Upasate
Satatam kirtayanto mam
Satatam Kirtayanto Mam
yatantascha drudha brata
Yatanta
Dradavrataha
namastasyanta cha mam bhaktya
Namasyanta
Namasyantasam Bhaktaya
nitya yukta upasate.
Nitya Yukta Upasate
Upasate
Satatam kirtayanto mam
Satatam
Satatam Kirtayanto
Kirtayanto
Mam
Mam
yatantascha drudha brata
Yatanta
Yatantasya
Dradavrata
Dradavrataha
namasyantascha mam bhaktya
Namasyanta
Namasyantasya Mam
Bhakta
Bhaktaya
nitya yukta upasate.
Nitya
Nitya Yukta
Yukta Upasate.
Any Prabhuji or Mataji would like to read?
Satatam Kirtayanto Mam
Satatam kirtayanto mam
Yatanta Dradavrataha
yatantascha drudha brata
Namasyanta Mam Bhaktya
namasyantascha mam
Namasyantasya Mam
bhakta
Bhaktaya
Nitya Yukta Upasate
Nitya Yukta
nitya yukta
Upasate.
upasate.
Satatam kirtayanto mam
Satatam
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 Kirtayanto
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 Mam
mam
yatantascha druಢvrataha
Yatanta
yatantascha drudha
Dradavrataha
brata
namasyantascha mam bhaktya
Namasyanta Mam
namasyantascha mam
Bhaktya
bhaktya
nitya ukta upasate.
Nitya
nitya
Yukta
yukta
Upasate
upasate.
Satatam kirtayanto mam
Satatam
Satatam
Kirtayanto Mam
kirtayanto mam
itam tascho darabrata
Yatanta
yatantascha drudha
Dradavrataha
brata
namushantascho mam bhakta
namasyantascha
Namasyantasya
Mam
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 Bhaktya
bhaktya
nitya yukta upashate.
Nitya
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 Yukta
yukta upasate. Word by word meaning. Satatam, always.
Satatam
Satatam
always
always.
Kirtayanta,
Kirtayanto
Kirtayanta
chanting.
chanting
Chanting.
chanting
Mam, about me.
mam
Mam
about
Mam
me.
about me.
about me
Yatanta, fully endeavoring.
Yatanta
Yatanta
fully
fully
endeavoring.
endeavoring
Cha, also.
Cha
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 also
also
also.
Drudha vrata,
druಢvrata
Rudravrata.
Dradavrata
with determination.
with determination.
Determination.
Termination.
Namasyantascha,
Namaskanta,
Namaskanta.
offering obeisances.
offering
Offering
obeisances.
obeisances.
Cha and
Cha
Cha
and
And
mam me.
Mam
me.
me.
Bhaktya in devotion.
Bhakti
Bhaktya in devotion.
devotion.
Nitya yukta,
Nitya Yukta.
Nitya
perpetually engaged.
perpetually engaged.
Yukta.
Upasate, worship.
Upasate worship.
Worship.
Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai.
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 Always chanting my glories,
Always
Always
chanting my
chanting
glories.
my glory.
Very sweet.
endeavoring with great determination,
Endeavoring with
Endeavoring
great
with
determination.
great determination.
bowing down before me.
Bowing
Bowing
down before me.
These great souls
These great
These
souls
great souls
perpetually worship me
Perpetually
perpetually
worship
worship
me
me
with devotion.
with
with
devotion.
devotion.
Any Prabhuji or Mataji would like to read this page of the purport?
The Mahatma cannot be manufactured by rubber stamping an ordinary man. His symptoms are described here. A Mahatma is always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. He has no other business. He is always engaged in the glorification of the Lord. In other words, he is not an impersonalist. When the question of glorification is there, one has to glorify the Supreme Lord, praising his holy name, his eternal form, his transcendental qualities, and his uncommon pastimes. One has to glorify all these things. Therefore, a Mahatma is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is attached to the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord. The Brahma Jyoti is not described as Mahatma in the Bhagavad Gita. He is described in a different way in the next verse.
Anyone else would like to read this page?
Mahatma is always engaged in different activities of devotional service as described in Srimad Bhagavatam. Hearing and chanting about Vishnu, not a demigod or a human being, that is devotion. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu and Smaranam, remembering him. Such a Mahatma has a firm determination to achieve at the ultimate end the association of the Supreme Lord in any one of the five transcendental rasas. To achieve that success, he engages all activities, mental, bodily, and vocal, everything in the service of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. This is called full Krishna consciousness. In devotional service, there are certain activities which are called determined, such as fasting on certain days, like the 11th day of the moon, Ekadashi, and on the appearance day of the Lord. All these rules and regulations are offered by the great acharyas for those who are actually interested in getting admission into the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental world. The Mahatmas, great souls, strictly observe these rules and regulations, and therefore they are sure to achieve the desired result.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Anyone else would like to read this page?
As described in the second verse of the chapter, not only is this devotional service easy, but it can be performed in a happy mood. One does not need to undergo any servo, penance, and austerity. He can live this life in devotional service, guided by an expert spiritual master, and in any position, either as a householder or a sannyasi or a brahmachari. In any position and anywhere in the world, He can perform this devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus become actually Mahatma, a great soul.
Thank you, Mataji. Oh, let's all chant together instead of following so that we can all nicely realize this. Om Agyana Timirandasya
Om Gyanti
Gyananjana
Madhusya
Shalakaya
Jnanjala Shalaka
Chakshurmilitam Yena
Jnana
Tasmai Sri
Tasmai Sri
Gurave
Gurave
Namo
Namah
Shri
Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Manovishnam
Manovistam Staptam
Sthapitamena
Yena Bhutale
Bhutayam Rupa
Swarupa
Damayam
Kadamaham Dadati
Dati
Swapadantikam
Swapadantikam
Vande
Vande
Ham Sri
Aham
Vande
Guru
Sri
Sri Yuta
Guru
Padakamalam Sri Guru
Sri
Vaishnavamscha Sri
Sriru
Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana
Jatam
Raghunatham Tam Sajipam Sadvaitam
Avadutam
Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna
Saitam
Chaitanya
Krishna
Devam
Chaitanya
Sri
Devam
Radha
Sri
Krishna
Radha Krishna
Padam Sagana
Padam
Lalita Sri
Avalita
Vishakhavitam Scha
Sri
He Krishna
He
Karuna
Krishna
Sindhu
Karuna Sindhu
Dinabandhu Jagatpate
Dando Jagatpati
Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute
Namostati
Tapta
Tapta
Kanchana
Kanchan
Gauranga
Gaurangi
Radhe
Radhe
Vrindavaneshwari
Vrindavaneshwari
Vanusute Devi
Vishabhanusate Devi
Pranamami Haripriya
Pranamami Haripriya
Vanchakalpataruvasya
Vanchakalpa
Kripa Sindhuvacha
Sindhuvayevacha
Patitanam
Patitanam
Pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo
Vaishnavebhyo
Namo
Namo Namah
Jai
Jai
Shri
Shri
Krishna
Krishna
Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Prabhu
Prabhu
Nityananda
Nityananda
Shri Advaita
Hare Advaita
Gadadhara Shivas
Gadadhara
Adi Gaura Bhakta
Srivasati
Vrinda
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda
Hare
Hare
Krishna
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 Hare
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna Hare
Krishna
Hare
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 Rama
Hare
Hare
Rama
Rama
Hare Rama
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 Rama Hare.
Rama Hare Hare.
So thank you so much for joining this wonderful Sangha, which we have been not having regularly because of various different reasons. But anytime we have an opportunity to associate and indulge in some of the very powerful direction from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it gives us that element of purpose in life. So today we have this beautiful verse, which is the part of this confidential knowledge which Krishna Rajaguiham, it's so secret, not many people are aware of it. By fortunate souls like our founder Acharya and various different parampara, we are able to assimilate this and are able to divulge this. So when we talk about this, it's the same verse, but the same verse when it goes into a devotee and the devotee presents it, it comes in many different flavors. That's the reason why the same words, when understood by many different people and shared, discussed like we do in this forum, it gives a very unique meaning to life. Because the same thing, if you take a medicine, for example, the same medicine will behave differently in different people. We have been through this COVID pandemic, right? The COVID pandemic, it manifests in different ways. Some people get headaches, some people get fever, some people, you know, have stomach upset, some people have lack of taste, or some people have all of these. So the same thing appears, the same virus appears in different people in different way. So how Krishna consciousness is going to touch us, is going to manifest in us, and how a person is going to experience is different. That's the reason why, as much as possible, try to receive this knowledge which Krishna is giving, the source being Krishna. It manifests in many different ways. But at the same time, if it comes from the parampara, it has a very true meaning because there is no speculation in there. So having said that, Krishna, last verse 13th, which we covered 2 weeks back, is talking about the characteristic of Mahatma. And then in this verse, Krishna is explaining what does a Mahatma do. So Krishna, as you can see, is very, very logical in presenting Krishna consciousness. The ability to understand him is very clear once we follow Bhagavad Gita as it is, as written by Srila Prabhupada, where he takes it from a very scientific level and is presenting it. That's why it has touched so many millions of people around the world, and it is translated in 100+ languages. So here Krishna is saying Satatam Kirtoyantoma. That means if a person is a Mahatma, then he does kirtan of me Satatam all the time, always. And yatantasya dridhavrata. That means there will be a lot of distraction. There will be a lot of focus taken away by different activities. But he's so determined, he's so dridha, he's so focused that he considers the kirtan part, the chanting part. Kirtan means we're basically glorifying the Lord. We are explaining the kirti of the Lord. From kirti, kirtan comes. That means we are basically glorifying the Lord. We are essentially, whenever we glorify some people, after some time you realize maybe I'm over exaggerating the praise on this, but more and more you explain the glories of the Lord, like Krishna, like Ram, you'll realize that you can go on for hours and hours and hours, and the person who is hearing it is never going to give it up. So there is an element of perpetuality, which Srila Prabhupada is using Nitya Yukta, the perpetually engagement part, Nitya Yukta Upasate. And then the third one, Namas Yantascha Mam Bhakta. That means the person is offering obeisances. So actually, when we look at our way of respecting someone, we touch the lotus feet. Sometimes we put ourselves in a flat condition and paying obeisances. It's a sign of respect. So the act of a Mahatma is always chanting the glories of the Lord, the kirti of the Lord. That's why it's called kirtan. Whenever we basically chanting the holy name, we're essentially glorifying the Lord internally, and glorification of the Lord gives him that element of happiness. And he does it, the person who is a Mahatma, he does it satatam, he does it always. So we'll discuss about what this always means in the context of a karmi. We are essentially sadhakas in a karmic place, and how that always refers to us. And then we will talk about a little bit of determination, and then and the importance of paying obeisances, or giving that element of respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees, which is very important. Why devotees? When if you pay obeisances to the Lord and you disrespect devotees, how it can truly anger the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We'll discuss that a little bit, which is essentially the third line. And Nitya Yukta, that means we do it perpetually. We do it not whimsically, it happens at one point in time and we do not do it again and again. Sometimes perpetually doing it gives us that element of love for the activity. So these are the 4 points which comes from this beautiful verse. The qualities of Mahatma is something we learned last time. Then this time in 14th, we're going to discuss what does a Mahatma do? So Mahatma, as La Prabhupada is mentioning, the first line is not a rubber stamp. So what that means is it's not a PhD degree that you put ahead of your name. You see, there are many people who are leaving the body because when they came, they were neither PhDs, or they were neither medicine doctors. But when they end their life, they make it a point to put the prefix of theirs. See, the life has gone, but they have not left that attachment for that name. So that rubber stamp, which La Prabhupada is saying here, the first Mahatma cannot be manufactured by rubber stamping an ordinary man. That means you came as a person with no rubber stamping, with no doctorate, no medicine doctor, or however. But we should make it a point that bhakti or Krishna consciousness has to be experienced. When there is experience in us, There is no need to rubber stamp us. We feel for us. We feel. We do not have to be praised by somebody, because the connection is direct with the Supreme. You feel for it. You feel happy about hearing the glories of the Lord. You feel happy cleaning the temple. Then that itself is a reward by itself. You really do not have to look for. Most of the time, our social circle is so much convoluted that they will make a human being a god, and a god a human being. And that is exactly where the problem comes. So we do not have the power to internally get satisfied. We look for others to satisfy us. And that is where Krishna consciousness, as COVID presented to us, and as Madhavananda Prabhu said in one of his lectures, is to look antarmukhi. That means to look inwards in trying to realize Krishna in us, in our heart, and how to experience Krishna by doing devotional service in the elements of discussing about him, glorifying him, offering flowers and bhoga to him, and then paying obeisances to him. So it's not a rubber stamp, as Srila Prabhupada is starting the purport with. Whenever Srila Prabhupada writes something, his first 2-3 sentences of the purport is immensely powerful, where he is putting the entire load into this. As you may have seen, there are certain cricket players, when they play the game, they is basically mastered in one kind of a shot, and that shot fetches them most of the runs. Like if you think about Sachin Tendulkar, most of his runs came from cover drive. So likewise, our Krishna consciousness is a multifaceted activity, and you cannot expect to be a master of everything. So whatever gives you that connection, whatever gives you that link with Krishna, whether it is through chanting, whether it is through reading books, whether it is doing sankirtan, or whether it is cooking bhoga or distributing prasad, that if you take and derive your pleasure, you will have a blissful life. So Satatam. So when we talk about Satatam, what do we understand? So you might have seen many acharyas and many sannyasis who have come to our temple. You discuss with them about temple and about certain things. But when the discussion goes something which is not focused around Krishna consciousness, you'll hear things like, this person is doing that, this person is doing that. When it is meandering into a situation where we are deviating from Krishna consciousness, you'll realize that they will be talking to you, but they will be chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram Ram. So they are satatam in that context, that they are constantly focused, that anytime there is a dislodge and we're talking prajalpa, we're talking politics, we're deviating, they will be chanting. You'll be talking, they will be chanting. That resolves that element of how not to deviate yourself. So satatam is very important. So it's not as if you leave our entire work and end up doing it. But whenever we have an opportunity, which is and that opportunity, if it is keeping us stable, like when you go do your job, you get money and you donate to the temple, so it's actually helping us stay focused. But sometimes what happens is, when they're extremely meaningless parties, and you end up going to restaurants too frequently from the temple, from the work, it actually deviates you. So those are the yardsticks where the first line satatam, you need to sort of step back and resolve within ourselves if it is taking you away. And for doing that, you need to have determination, which is essentially the second line Krishna is saying, is without strong determination, Krishna consciousness cannot be pursued. This is why I wanted to say that. So once upon a time, there was ISO regulations. So there used to be a big company, which was focusing on ISO. The ISO expert went on to say, getting ISO certification is difficult, but maintaining ISO certification at that point in time, I'm talking about 30 years ago, when some of us started their job life, But maintaining the ISO certification is more difficult. Why? Because it need determination. So Krishna, coming to Krishna consciousness, there is prasadam, there is, Krishna has so many opulences, right? Krishna is akarshayati Krishna. He attracts. So attraction is going to be there. But after the attraction, the determination needs to come in, which Krishna is saying, Dridhavrata, staying focused on Krishna consciousness is also more important than coming to Krishna consciousness. And then how do you do that? You pay obeisances. Obeisances is our way to mark respect. Where you go, you lay flat in the temple, paying obeisances to His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, which you entirely do as the first time, and then go on from the left side of the temple to the right side of the temple. So there is a method to this process. And then he's perpetually engaged. Perpetually and satatam, they go hand in hand. But here, Krishna is saying nitya yukta upasate. That means the worshipping of Krishna. So see, worshipping is not just doing puja every day, but doing puja helps because it brings a process in our life. So I was just giving a class here in the local temple here where I am now. And at the end of the class, one person said, Prabhu, I have deep love for Krishna. I think I can connect with him very well. But is it mandatory for us to go through parampara? Is it mandatory to go through this devotional process? See, if you end up doing something, you will do it. But if it is not a habit, but if it is not a process, soon you will falter from it. So what that means is, once, since this is a wonderful process of higher taste put forth by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, and he has taken from his Guru Parampara, and he has and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur took it from his Guru. That's why you see the Guru Parampara in the step in Radha Syam Sundar altar. Why we do that is soon we do not fall into the process when we are lacking in Krishna consciousness, where our quality of Krishna consciousness fall down, we will start to fear. So the process gets you to love. If you do not focus on the process, you end up getting into a fear. Krishna consciousness is not a fearing thing. Krishna consciousness is a very internal thing which helps us stay blissful. So the process is very important. So to follow the process, the so-called the regulation, the constant round of chanting, focusing on Ekadasi. So the process is very important. Unless the process is not followed, you may have love, but you may not have perpetual love. And that is where the fourth line is so relevant. So so that means when do we really start this? We have to start it at a very early age, because sometimes the retaining power, the memory power, even at our age, at the age of 30, 40, 50, it tends to dwindle. So that's why Srila Prahlad Maharaj says, Kaumaram acharate pragyo dharman bhagavatan. That means Krishna consciousness has to be taught from a very childhood. If you have not kept up at childhood of 10, 20, 30, 40 is fine. But don't delay the process of acquiring Krishna consciousness or acquiring a taste in Krishna consciousness. So this aspect of Mahatma, Satatam, then Dridhavrata, then this Nitya Yukta, these are essentially tenets of Krishna consciousness, which will come in if we rebuild this at a very early age. And Srila Prabhupada, in many of his morning walks, have ended up saying that's the reason why when he built Krishna consciousness, there are many young devotees who joined, and look at them where they are. They're very strong in the foundation, and they have stayed celibate all their life, 50, 60 years. And that's example by itself. That means if you pick them young, if you inculcate that habit at a very young age, then it stays with you. Otherwise, we tend to forget. So, so it's important to follow the devotional process. So process is important. As like say for example, if you're in a train and the entire train goes to Delhi from eastern part of India or wherever, you will all get to Delhi's. So just being in the process gets you there. Some people may be in second class, some people may be in first class, but the process is immensely important, and we're talking about the process, not individuals. So to become a Mahatma, it's not an individual thing. Krishna consciousness is a public thing. Anybody can and everybody can take it. But if they follow the process as mentioned in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara, then Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Vaishnava Parampara, which we are part of, then it actually gets us there. So that's why it's important to follow the process. So without the process, then fear is inculcated. If there is no process, then there is fear if you do not. So initially it starts with Sakam Bhakti. We have desire, we come to Krishna consciousness for the purpose of money or promotion or good education. But then once we see the association of the devotees and how it is transcending, then we morph into sadhan bhakti. That means we basically try to follow a sadhu. Some of our great sadhus in our parampara are there for us, who are disciples of Srila Prabhupada and who are our initiating gurus. We tend to think about their teachings, think about their association, then we start to follow a sadhu in the process, and then we try to become a servant, where we become a anuga. Anuga means, and what is anuga in this context? Raga anuga. That means we have raga, we have kind of love, but then we find love in following a sadhu with a servant attitude, which is raga anuga bhakti, and then we try, then after we get this, we tend to love Krishna spontaneously. We wake up, pay obeisances onto Krishna, we take bath, we try to offer some bhoga to Krishna, and we try to read some book. So we have the spontaneous process, and then when that spontaneity turns into purity, then we get prema bhakti. So so what is the characteristic of Mahatma and what does a Mahatma do is very clearly mentioned. And when this Mahatma does something, how does it manifest? And what is the process, which is essentially discussed here. So, so as you saw, there are 9 stages. Like we talked about 9 process of bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, and that you can all have that one at a time, or out of 9, or 3 out of 9, depending on your propensity to get into that process, that achar. But in a bhakti, these are the sequential process. But first you get the shraddha, or you get the faith, and then as we mentioned, you start associating with devotees, wherein you start mingling, and then you start following a sadhu who has exemplified it through his achar. That's why they're called acharyas. And then you start doing devotional service, which is nothing but bhajana kriya. Bhajana doesn't mean to sing all the time. You, whatever devotional service you are doing, you can end up doing the same thing, cooking or cleaning or attending service, honoring prasad, all of that. So where you're basically performing, you're basically giving your time to Krishna, and then you try to get rid of all the impurities in your life, which is the anartha nivritti stage, where you end up starting Ekadasi, for example, doing fasting on the appearance day of, Guru Paramparas and, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his associates. So essentially, you detoxify yourself by doing some anartha nibriti. So that's actually after you do some activity, devotional service, then you realize I have to get rid of all these anarthas, this ego, the ahankar, all these things, goes away in this stage, and then we have a steadiness in the sense, when you try to talk about cricket, you tend to hit the ball on merit. That means you tend to be repeatable in your process. What I mean by repeatable in the process is, whenever that activity is posed onto you, you respond, you do not react, you respond in a very fixed way. So that means you bring in that element of steadiness in your life, in your relation with devotees, in your relation with Supreme, and in relation with understanding the book. Just because you have read it, you can manifest that in 20 different ways, but that's not what it is. So far you are behaving in 20 different ways, but once you get to this fifth stage, you basically behave in a very focused, composed, steady manner, which is nothing but nistha in this context. Then you start getting a taste for it. So in this example, I tend to think, whenever you came to US, you never had the taste of bagel. Actually, bagel used to taste horrible to us. But as we started eating and eating and eating with butter and whatnot, it became very palatable to us. So Krishna consciousness, so far you're basically focusing on 33 crores of demigods, and you had no intention or inclination of who the Supreme is. But once this assimilation of knowledge comes into picture, we realize Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he has many different forms, like Lord Jagannath, and he came as Yuga Avatar, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then we start building that focused taste on. So whenever you do not hear Krishna consciousness for a day, you feel separation, so that you start building a taste for it. And then you have asakti, not asakti for Maya, but asakti for Krishna, attachment to Krishna. So attachment to Krishna is actually taking you away, or detachment from Maya. So it's essentially attachment to Krishna. And the eighth stage is love, when and this love is not to Maya but for Krishna. And then finally, after bhava, you have pure love for Krishna, which gets refined, which is essentially the stage many of the exalted personalities will get there. We are nowhere in that stage. I can definitely say for myself, but that's essentially your progression of how to become a Mahatma. So whenever you want to prefix somebody with a Mahatma, think about these things. Are they having Shraddha in the Supreme? Are they associating with devotees, or they are associating with politicians, and then you are basically making them a Mahatma? Or are they performing devotional service? Are they following principles which will detoxify themselves? Are they steady in their path of their mission to Krishna consciousness? Do they have enough taste? Do they have attachment to Krishna? Do they have love for Krishna? And then if they have pure love for Krishna, which is essentially a goal, but it may or may not be achievable, but our goal should be that. So with that, I would like to end here with some thoughts about why Krishna is mentioning this and what are the characteristics of how to get there. So with that, I'd like to end here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any question or comments? Prabhuji or Mataji?
Prabhuji, when we are chanting, but our mind is not, totally focused on Krishna consciousness. It is moving here and there. What to do about that?
Yes, Prabhuji, very nice question. This is a very, this happens to me also, Prabhu. You are not alone on this. So it is better to focus some quality time for chanting. So what is happening, Prabhu, is we are, see, the right time for chanting is the Brahma Muhurta, or in the morning after 4:30 Mangalarati, around Tulsi plant, when no one is there, everything is calm. Outside there is no music, this, that, and all. And then you just go, sit dear tulsi plant and chant, then you'll be focused because you just got up. And as you got up, you pretty much from sleep. When you are asleep, your mind totally goes blank. So your mind is not contaminated, corrupted with so many of these material things, the phone calls, this. After getting up, the first thing we end up doing is we look at WhatsApp. It kind of agitates our mind. So then we end up going, doing our daily chores, and then we end up having breakfast and we start talking, and then we realize, hey, we have not chanted. But by that time, you see, the WhatsApp has gone into the mind, the calls have gone into the mind, and you are not in the best stage. So the and this is something we all should aspire towards, a goal that let's get up, take bath, not look at WhatsApp, chant, finish the rounds, whatever you can, 8, 12, 16, and then do other things. Then, Prabhu, it is going to be very focused. And people who attend, there are 2 people in our temple who attend Mangala Arati, and you will see them all the time at 4:30. And and many of them also stay back for chanting. They definitely have quality. Or also at 5 o'clock, we have a Zoom session which is opened by our temple. And at that time, if you chant with devotees over Zoom, that is when you have the perfect mindset. So more clarity we have, where we do not have all these complications, our chanting quality goes up. Does that help, Prabhu?
Thank you, Prabhuji. Yes, very good. Very good
Hare Krishna.
explanation. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Any other comments about today's discussion?
Prabhuji, also, as Guru Maharaj used to tell that we should always, Prabhuji, for the concentration part, the best thing which we can do is, as Hemant Panda Prabhu told, to keep the mind calm, hear the chant what we are. The moment you start hearing, your mind won't go here and there, Prabhuji. Not that we are
Yes.
doing, but that is the best what works, Prabhuji. That you don't have to focus on anything different, Prabhuji, because
Right.
the name itself is Krishna. So focus on the name, you'll get the
Right.
automatically your mind will come back, Prabhuji.
Right. Yes.
And as
So Prabhuji
Prabhuji said,
mentioned
our
about the
duty,
importance of hearing. Yes. Sorry, Prabhu, go ahead.
sorry, Prabhuji, I was just seconding your thought that our as the day progresses, we go into mode of passion and ignorance, Prabhuji. Morning is a mode of goodness. So morning is the best time in mode of goodness, and to hear our chant. And 3, what I have heard from other devotees, Prabhuji, is if we chant with gratitude that, oh Krishna, thanks for giving me this chance to spend time with you, right? Otherwise, we get busy with the regular material life things, right? So that is the time we should feel gratitude that we have got this time and we can utilize this time to spend with you, Krishna. Because once you spend time with Krishna for that part of the day, the rest of the day he takes care of it. Otherwise, we don't know how our day is planned by Krishna.
Awesome, awesome. Prabhuji touched on 2 things. I want to expand on that. The first thing he touched is hearing. So when you're chanting, you're using, one sense, like you have 5 senses, right? So our intent is to indulge all the senses in Krishna. So when you are speaking and you're hearing something else, the music outside, so if you kind of cover it with a thing, or you stay in a room which is kind of devoid of noise. I know here I'm having a lot of noise outside. So then you're basically speaking the Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare, and then you're hearing. So that you're basically adding a sense, you're surrendering a sense to Krishna by indulging. So more and more senses you devote, it is good, which Prabhuji spoke about. The other thing he spoke also is the see, we are walking today. It's actually a gift of Krishna. There are many people I know in very, very close quarters. There are people who cannot walk now. They cannot eat. They have been paralyzed. They have been, through challenges. So we should be we should have that act of gratitude, as Prabhuji said, that we are able to walk. Whatever we are able to do, we're able to walk, we're able to eat, our body is not paralyzed. Actually, if you come at our age group, when our parents are aging, you realize that that is a very common phenomena, and then you appreciate the aspect what Prabhuji said about the aspect of attitude, of gratitude. Because once you have that because without Krishna's will, not a single leaf is going to shake. Leaf is shaking because wind, the Pavandev, who is working under the instruction, and all this is in second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Krishna has assigned some deities to take care of certain um, adhyatmic and adi devic phenomena. And because of the instruction from Krishna, Pavandev is actually moving, and because of that, the leaf is shaking. So the point is, there is for leaf to move, there is an act of gratitude, because without Krishna's instruction, so that thinking, and there is more to it. I'm not saying that's the best. I'm sure some of you devotees have experienced something else which you can share, as this is a session where we all share how to improve quality of chanting. I touched on the time, Prabhuji added to it by speaking about adding one sense into it, and then having that element of gratitude. And if you have others, you all can add, but essentially, I just want to say that's why it's very important to have this conversation, which can refine our quality of chanting. Any other thoughts? Or any other comments, reflections about this verse, about what Mahatma does?
If on this verse, Prabhuji, just if we don't yatatam, if we don't think, our mind is a thinking mind, Prabhuji, no matter what, on whether, if not Krishna, it will think on something else, right? And that something else can lead to many problems also. It can land us into troubles, because our senses are always seeking. They are always seeking senses, Prabhuji. So the best way is, Prabhuji, if we yatatam, if we think of Krishna, then there is a guarantee that Maya will not touch us. Otherwise, that's what Mahatma, that's why they are Mahatmas, Prabhuji. They don't have any other focus other than thinking about Krishna. Or thinking means not only thinking, acting for Krishna, doing devotional service for Krishna, reading about Krishna, whatever the time. Even while working also, if you think of about Krishna while working, I'm pretty sure we can think of Krishna and do our work. So the insurance we get is that Maya doesn't touch us. That is the insurance we have, Prabhuji's. And that Kirtayanto can be anything, like as we have spoken. It can be reading, it can be Shravanam, Kirtanam. You can, many people hear music and work, Prabhuji, right? So we can replace that music. If you have that habit, we can replace that music by the chant, right? And automatically what happens, it will give us the Dridhavrata, that determination automatically builds up, Prabhuji. That is Krishna's assurance, and that the Dridhavrata, we become determined to continue that, because the more it basically harmonizes our day accordingly. So the next day we feel, okay, Krishna yesterday has given me a peaceful day. Ultimately, what is important is not money or anything, probably peace, right? That peace is the motivator for and that peace comes absolutely by the yatatam in the Dridhavrata.
Excellent, excellent. Prabhuji touched on something which I wanted to expand on. So if you have a half-filled glass, the glass is half filled with water, your mind is looking, what can I add? Can I add some juice? Can I add some milk? And some people add alcohol, and that's where it goes. So if the glass is full, then the person doesn't have any chance to add anything. So what Prabhuji said is very profound, and let's meditate on that. If your mind is empty, your mind will go into this talk shows where two people will be fighting. Your mind will go to some mundane movies. Your mind will go to so many unwanted things. You'll go to magazines where the person is basically selling his ideas and whatnot. But if your mind is filled, your mind is filled with so many dimensions of Krishna consciousness, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to stay focused. So, and as rightly said, idle mind is devil's workshop. So if you're always engaged in chanting, worshipping, cooking bhoga, reading, and there is so many Krishna conscious literature which not necessarily is scripture as is, but some of our second generation um, writers have written some wonderful books like Gaur Gopal Prabhu, Subbilash Prabhu, which is also an extension of some of the works of His Divine Grace, which is very fulfilling as well. It will give you that element of novelty. You'll basically stay away from the Western novels, and their books are much better than many novel or many movies. Which so and some of our very prominent sannyasis have written some very strong realization, their journeys and whatnot, which is more profound than a novel. So once you fill yourself with all of these, then you will not have any emptiness to really dwell on something which is unwanted.
Prabhuji,
Is that okay?
just
Yes,
want to
Prabhuji.
add one thing. So I'm right now reading before sleeping. Usually I read, I started reading The Journey Home from Radhanath Swami Maharaj. So his story is no less than any, super hit movie kind of thing. It's so interesting, page by page, very, very exciting story.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a fact actually. So he had the way he had gone through.
Exactly. And just want to add Pratap Prabhu's views that when you read Journey Home, you'll realize that Maharaj is hitchhiking from the east to west. And when you read Ocean of Mercy by his
Hare Krishna, good morning, Prabhuji. It is now, right now it is starting. Sunday.
Yeah.
Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you read the Ocean of Mercy by His Holiness Bhakti Charu Maharaj, he is actually hitchhiking from east to west. And both these, and how Maharaj used to be a very bright cricket player during his heydays, Bhakti Charu Maharaj. So these two books, and there are many, but as to add to Pratap Prabhu's views, these books are no less than spiritual novels, which can make your day if that's how you want to start. So there is all aspect of dimensions. The limbs of bhakti is not just restricted to one book or two book. It's a mixture of so many views where you can all assimilate. Okay, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, just 2 minutes I'll take. Very wonderfully, profoundly explain and everything. But my one question here, Prabhu, that I recently visited the Jagannath Puri, and there I saw the Panda. Panda means they are Sevayat. They are doing the Seva of Jagannath. Very, very, very soulfully and very touching. So they are not, they are only meditating the Jagannath, right? The Bhagavan Krishna is Jagannath. So what do you think about that? Their process or our process?
Nice question, Prabhu. See, Prabhu, uh, they are also performing bhakti, Prabhu. They are performing the 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 see, there are many limbs of bhakti, right? So their bhakti, when they're mostly doing worship, mostly doing pujas, mostly doing the vaidhi, the process. So they are also meditating. They are also regulated. They are constantly looking at Lord Jagannath, and they are glorifying, as in this verse talks about. Uh, they are also doing kirti of Lord Jagannath, who is none other than Krishna, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent most of his time in a single place, and that is Jagannath Puri. So they are doing kirti of Lord Jagannath. So they are also following. So there are many paths, right? As we discussed, there are many paths to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But our path, which is a path of regulation, a path of parampara, is also very potent. So I'm not going to say uh, their process is not right. Their process is also there. You can go from Edison to New York City in a train, by driving, by port authority, waterways, and so many different ways. So their process is also enlivening, enchanting. But if you are already rooted in the Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, then you'll find ample uh, energy and ample inspiration, and and we can all lean in on there and learn about. When Srila Prabhupada started, he asked quite a lot of devotees to go to Gurudwara and see how they're kneading roti, and how they are making. So Prabhupada wanted us to learn various different techniques, how we can serve. Going to Jagannath Puri, the Pandas give you another dimension of bhakti, which we can put, and we do not have to leave our road to go in their road. We just have to take their very good views, their purity in prasad making, their purity in seeing Lord Jagannath as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord of the universe. Actually, they're helping us in our. So whenever we go to this dham, as you rightly said, Prabhu, it basically gives us that element of inspiration, that element. So every year or every 2 years, all of you should go to dhams, because when you go to dham, it reposes, it gives you that element of, if I can use that word, it gives you that element of boost to prolong your bhakti again and again. When you go to Dwarka, you realize how Krishna is getting dressed. When you go to Lord Jagannath Puri, you see how Krishna is being fed. And when you go to Rameswaram, you see how Krishna is being bathed. And when you go to Vrindavan, you see how Krishna is playing with his friends and gopis. And when you go to Mayapur, you see how Krishna is dancing and chanting. So there are multiple facets of Krishna consciousness. We just have to augment it by going to dham, because going to dham is like pada sevanam. So when you did that, Prabhu, you did pada sevanam. So one process of bhakti out of the 9, you aligned with it. So congratulations, and we just have to lean in on them, and we don't have to deviate. Does that help, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, definitely this explanation is very much helpful for us, Prabhu. Yes, correct. Thank you, Prabhu, very much. So I got the differentiation, and I got the actual essence. Everything essence has the essence. So we can see their bhakti not deviating from our path. Also, we can appreciate their bhakti also.
And also, to add, Prabhu, they are actually dhambasis, so we cannot judge them, and we can only appreciate them. and we came here. We came to different countries to get money and that, but they did not. Srila Prabhupada and Bhakti Charu Maharaj has mentioned we should not never judge them. Okay, they are not doing this, they are not doing this. We should always appreciate them, and just by following their path, we will basically improve our bhakti. Okay. Any other comments before we close?
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Dandavat pranam, everyone. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Also, Prabhuji, on Ashish Jagannath Prabhuji's Bhakti Charu Maharaj has told that we are following, it's like a university, Prabhuji. We are following a course. So, what our Guru Maharaj have given is one course, like how every university have their own. Everybody, say, teaching the faculty of engineering
Hare
and
Krishna, Hare
information
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
faculty of engineering or information sciences, but everybody's course will be different. So similarly, the way they serve Jagannath is different. So we can stick to our course and follow the course religiously, strictly.
Yeah. So if there is no other question or comment, how is everybody doing? How is Prabhuji's and Mataji's? Hope you all are keeping good health, because health, your body is actually a temple of the Lord, and we have to maintain our temple. Otherwise, our sadhana will go down. Hope you all are keeping good health and help each other in any way or share. Anybody else want to say before we close? Okay. So thank you for joining, and thank you for your participation. And we will have another discussion soon. I'll keep you posted. Let's end here. Vancha kalpataru vyasya kripa sindhu vayevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagavad Gita ki jai.
Hem Jagannath Prabhu ki jai.
Prabhupada.